everybody, it's Sarah and welcome to my crochet channel. Today's video I'm going to show you how to crochet this cute acorn. It measures about 8 by 8 and it's the perfect size for a washcloth or a hot pad or even just a decoration to decorate your house for fall. You can hang it up by this little loop and hang it up all over your house if you want to. And you can find the free crochet pattern on my blog, and I'll put that blog link down in the notes underneath this video. What you're going to need to make an acorn is some yarn, of course. This one is made with Premier cotton, which is this cream and beige variegated, and peaches and cream cotton, which is this brown variegated. These are cotton yarns, they're medium number 4. And I recommend that if you're going to use this as a hot pad or pot holder, that you make it in cotton yarns. I'm going to be using the second one as a decoration, and so I'm going to use acrylic yarn. This is just Red Heart Super Saver acrylic, medium number 4, in a cream and a darker brown. I'll use the cream here and the brown here. We're going to be stitching today with our H hook, which is a 5.0 millimeter crochet hook. You'll need a needle for weaving in your ends, and of course you'll need a pair of scissors. We're going to be starting with our cream yarn, and that's because we're starting with the bottom of the acorn and working up. We're going to start with a slip knot. And we're going to chain 18 chains. We're going to begin by stitching a double crochet in the 4th chain from the hook. 1, 2, 3, 4. These first 3 chains will count as 1 double crochet. Yarn over, go in, pull up a loop, yarn over, go through the first 2, yarn over, and go through the second 2 loops. And then we're going to place 1 double crochet in each of the chains across. I'm going to continue along, stitching 1 double crochet in each of the chains across. I continued to stitch 1 double crochet in each chain across. You should have 16 double crochets because we began in the 4th chain from the hook, and those first 3 chains counted as our first double crochet. We're going to chain 3 and turn. We're going to be increasing by 1 at the beginning and at the end. So we're going to place a double crochet in the same stitch as our chain 3. Then we'll place 1 double crochet in the next 14 stitches. All right, here's 14, and then we have our chain 3, and we're going to stitch 2 double crochets in the top of that chain 3. 1 and 2. And so now, instead of having 16 double crochets, we have 18 because we increased by 1 at the beginning of this row and 1 at the end of this row. And now we're going to chain 3 and turn. So for row 3, we're going to repeat what we did on row 2. We'll just have more stitches in between. We're going to increase by 1 at the beginning. We'll stitch 1 double crochet in each of the stitches across until we reach that last stitch. and then we'll stitch 2 double crochets in that last stitch. I stitched across that row, and in the middle here we should have 16 double crochets, and then we have 2 in the last stitch, which is at chain 3 from the previous row. And chain 3. So now we have 20 double crochets. We did 2 at the beginning because we stitched 1 in the same stitch as our chain 3. We stitched 1 in each of those 16 stitches, and then we stitched 2 in the last stitch. So now we have 20 double crochets for row 3. So we chained 3 and we're going to turn. And again, we're going to repeat what we did, only we're going to have more stitches in between. So we'll place a double crochet in the same stitch as our chain 3. We'll stitch 1 double crochet in the next 18 stitches, and then we'll stitch 2 in the last stitch. I stitched across, stitching 1 double crochet in those next 18 double crochets. I'm to my last stitch, and so I'm going to stitch 2 double crochets in this last stitch. 1 and 2. And then I'm going to chain 3. And it looks like I have a knot I need to deal with. But before I do that, we're on our 4th row. On the 4th row, you should have 22 double crochets because, again, we increased by 1 here and here. All right, knot crisis averted. Love that Russian join. All right, so we chain 3 and we're going to turn. Now, for row 5, we're not going to increase anymore. Our chain 3 counts as our first double crochet, so we're going to go right in the next double crochet, and we're going to stitch 1 double crochet in each of the stitches across. We're not increasing anymore, and so this row will also have 22 double crochets. So what we're doing is stitching 1 double crochet in each of the double crochets across. No increases, just 1 double crochet in each of the double crochets across. I've stitched 1 double crochet in each double crochet across. I'm to the end here. I'm going to stitch 1 double crochet in that last stitch. No increases, so just 1. Chain 3 and turn. All right, and now for row 6, it's exactly the same as row 5. We chained 3. Our chain 3 counts as our first double crochet, so we start in the next stitch and stitch 1 double crochet in each double crochet across. I've completed this row, stitching 1 double crochet in each double crochet across, so you have 22 double crochets. And now we're going to change colors. So we'll cut our cream colored yarn, or whatever color you're using, and we'll bring in our second color, which I'm using this sort of beigey brown. And you'll notice I did not chain 3. And that's because if I would have done a chain 1, 2, or 3 before I did the color change, we would have a little jog of the wrong color of yarn in there, and we don't want that. Now we're not going to be chaining 3, we're just going to chain 1. And turn. We're going to be stitching in the front loops only. and we're going to be stitching single crochets. Now if you look on the tops of your loops up here, you'll see there are loops on this side and on this side. For this row, we're going to be stitching on the front loops, or in the front loops, and we're going to stitch 1 single crochet in each of those front loops. So I'm going to make sure my yarn is snug down tightly so we don't have any gaping. I'm going to go right in the first front loop and stitch a single crochet. And we're going to do this all the way across. 1 single crochet in each of the double crochets, working in the front loop only. And you can see back here there'll be a line of stitches. When we stitch our next row, we're going to be stitching in those back loops. Alright, so for this row, row 7, we're stitching 1 single crochet in each of the double crochets, stitching in the front loops only. I've stitched that row of single crochet working in the front loop only. I'm going to chain 3 and turn. And now what we're going to be doing is working in the back loops only, and we're going to be stitching double crochets. So here's our chain 3. We'll go to the next stitch, which is this loop right here, and we'll stitch a double crochet. Now what I do is I sort of push them forward. The stitches from the front post, I push them a little bit forward. That way I can see the loops I'm supposed to be stitching in. And so I can stitch my double crochets right in those loops. And we're stitching 1 double crochet in the back loops all the way across. And I want you to see this. I'm going to pull that out for a little bit. This is going to come up, and this is our front. So here's our front where we did our single crochets on the front loops, and this is the back where we're stitching our double crochets in the back loops. And so this is what gives us this little edge of our acorn. Alright, so I'm going to continue across, stitching 1 double crochet in each of the back loops of our row. And of course this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is the 6th row. We stitched on our front loop of the 6th row, and now we're stitching the back loops of the 6th row. 1 double crochet in each of the double crochets across, stitching in the back loops only. I stitched those double crochets in the back loops, and I'm going to go ahead and chain 3. We'll turn, and you can see here's our single crochet row in the front loops that form that little ridge, and that just gives us a little ridge where the top of the acorn and the bottom of the acorn are hooked together. Alright, now let me move those scissors out of the way. What we're going to do for row 9 is we're going to increase at the beginning and the end like we did down here. So we'll place a double crochet in the same stitch as our chain 3. We'll stitch 1 double crochet in each of the stitches across, and then we'll increase by 1 in the last stitch. So I increased by 1 by placing 1 double crochet in the same stitch as my chain 3. I'm going to stitch a double crochet in the next 20 stitches, and then when we get to our chain 3, I'm going to stitch 2 double crochets in that chain 3, and that's going to give us an increase by 2. So instead of having 22 stitches, we'll have 24. I've double crocheted in those 20 double crochets across, and now I'm going to stitch 2 double crochets in this last stitch. 1 and 2, and chain 3. And now for the next 2 rows, we're just going to stitch 1 double crochet in each double crochet across, chain 3, and turn, and stitch 1 double crochet in each stitch across. Our chain 3 counts as our first double crochet, so we'll go right to that next double crochet and stitch 1 double crochet in each of the double crochets across. We'll chain 3 and turn and repeat. 1 double crochet in each double crochet across. So we're going to do this for 2 rows. I've completed those 2 rows of 1 double crochet in each double crochet, turn, chain 3, and repeat 1 double crochet in each double crochet. Now we're going to form the top of our acorn. So after this row, which is row 11, we're only going to chain 1, and then we're going to turn. Our chain 1 does not count as a stitch. And we're going to begin by stitching 1 single crochet in the first 6 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Then we're going to stitch a half double crochet in the next 3 stitches. Yarn over, go in, pull up a loop, yarn over, and go through all 3 of those loops. 2 and 3. Next we're going to place a double crochet in the next 2 stitches. 1 and 2. The next stitch we're going to place 2 double crochets in the same stitch. 1 and 2. And then we're going to chain 1. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do what we did here in reverse, working to the other side. So we'll stitch 2 double crochets in the same stitch, 1 and 2. We'll stitch 1 double crochet in the next 2 stitches, 1, 2. Then we'll stitch a half double crochet in the next 3 stitches. 1, 2, and 3. And then we'll end by stitching a single crochet in the last 6 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and our 6 stitches in that chain from the previous row. We're going to chain 1 and turn. All right, and this is how we get the shape of the top of our acorn. We're going to single crochet across the top of our acorn. We're going to make that loop right here in this chain 1 space, and then we'll single crochet across the top. And then we'll work our way around and add the extra little tip of our bottom of our acorn, and then work our way back up around. All right, so we're going to single crochet in each of these single crochets till we reach that chain 1 space between those double crochets. So now we're to that chain one space. We're going to single crochet in that chain one space, and we're going to chain 8. And this is our loop, so we can hang it up. And it also sort of resembles the stem. We're going to go right back in that chain one space and stitch a single crochet, and then we'll stitch 1 single crochet in each of the stitches working to the other side of our top of our acorn. Alright, so this is the way that the top of our acorn will look. And here's our loop. So now we're going to single crochet down the side of our acorn for a nice finished edge. And when you single crochet evenly, it's a good idea to try to stitch your stitches in the sides of the stitches and not the holes. There we go. I've evenly single crocheted down the side of my acorn, and now I'm going to work the bottom of my acorn. And what we're going to do is we're going to stitch 6 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Then we're going to stitch 1 half double crochet, and then in the next stitch we're going to stitch 2 double crochets. 1 and 2. We're going to chain 1 and then stitch 2 double crochets in the next. 1 and 2. Then we'll stitch a half double crochet in the next. And that's our little point that's at the bottom of our acorn. And then we'll stitch 1 single crochet in the next 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Oops, I missed that loop. Our first single crochet there. All right. So now we've formed the bottom of our acorn with that little point. And the last thing that we need to do is just work our way back up, evenly single crocheting back up to here where we began. And again, you want to be careful to make sure that you stitch your single crochets in the sides of the stitches and not the holes. Now, there may be a time when you have to stick it in a hole if you can't find a stitch that works. But try, even if it's tight, to stitch that stitch in the side of a stitch and not a hole. There we go. So I'm going to continue to work my way up the side of this acorn, and then we'll join back to the very first single crochet on this row. I finished stitching up the side, which is my last side of my acorn. I'm going to join with a slip stitch to that first single crochet and cut my yarn. I'll go in that next loop, grab that loop, and pull it to the back. There we go, and I need to take my needle and weave that in, and make sure you weave in all your ends, especially if this is going to get used a lot. You don't want those ends popping out. So here are both acorns. This one's made out of Red Heart Super Saver acrylic. You can use any medium weight number 4 yarn you want to. This one's made out of cotton. This one's going to be used as a hot pad. This one is going to be decoration.